What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. You guys are going to get a couple of the backyard videos today because right now, well, my Wi-Fi's not working, so I'm using data on my cell phone. Kind of wanted to just get a couple of topics up for you guys, and hopefully the Wi-Fi is working by tonight. If it isn't, I'm going to have to contact Bad Dog, and we may have to reschedule the Talking Giants show. But if it is, we will be live tonight at 9 o'clock. And I kind of want to talk about two articles that came out today regarding the New York Giants. The first one is written by Steve Serby of the New York Post, talking about Daniel Jones. I'll have another video up in a little bit talking about one of the other players on the New York Giants. It's just very encouraging news for both individuals. And, of course, Daniel Jones entering his second year has huge expectations. And a lot of people on my live stream last night on Instagram, which you guys could follow me there on @TheEntertainer, we talked about the possibility if the New York Giants have a really poor year, get the first pick, would they take Trevor Lawrence? But my answer to that is that's not going to happen. I'm going into the year with much more optimistic expectations than that. But, you know, I guess it's a remote possibility if they were to move on from Dave Gettleman, being that he has the only attachments to Daniel Jones. But when you hear things like this from Cutcliffe and some of the things he's had to say about Daniel Jones' work ethic, what he's done in the offseason, and excuse me while I read the quotes, it's just really encouraging things. And I think Daniel Jones is going to have a strong second season for the New York Giants. I really do. I strongly believe that, especially when you look back at my video talking about, you know, how well he's performed with the deep ball and how I think he will fit Jason Garrett's offense very well. And Cutcliffe went on to say that. Cutcliffe, of course, was the quarterback coach for Eli Manning as well as Peyton Manning, two very successful pros at the NFL level. So I think we could I think he's a reliable source when it comes to, talking about guys that he thinks could be very successful in the NFL, being that Peyton Manning is arguably the best or one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time, and Eli Manning's probably one of the top 20 or 25. But here's what he had to say about Daniel Jones. One second, guys. First quote. I think we will see a much better Daniel Jones, Cutcliffe told the Post. I think he's going to be a much better product than what he was a year ago. And you know what? He should be. I mean, year 2 is a huge year for a quarterback. And I say it all the time. You look at Carson Wentz, you look at Jared Goff, so on and so forth. This is the year where you really expect to see a jump. I think Daniel Jones, in many aspects, exceeded what we expected from him last year. But this year, obviously, he's got to cut down on the fumbling woes, things like that. Cutcliffe went on to talk about that. But overall, I think we liked what we saw out of Jones. But I'm expecting a big jump in year 2, and so does Cutcliffe. He then later went on to talk about Jason Garrett and how Daniel Jones will fit the Jason Garrett-led offense. I know Jason a little bit. I think the world of him, Cutcliffe said. He'll do a great job with Daniel. I think Jason and Daniel are kind of similar people. Really smart, analytical people. I think they're going to be a good pair. And, you know, the other thing I read about Garrett, there was another article on it. It's a offense that's going to take a lot of risk. And that kind of lends itself to what we saw from Daniel Jones last year. Now, there are times where I want to see Daniel Jones kind of ease up on the brakes. I think he'll learn that as he goes along. But Daniel Jones is definitely, to me, a guy that's going to take his shots when he sees the opportunity. And I do think that that's why they're a good pairing. I think that Garrett is going to have that type of offense that is going to try to let Daniel Jones use that accuracy down the field and try to create big plays. The next quote I wanted to talk about was this, talking about Tony Romo and Garrett. I sat with Jason and Romo before and talked football, and I saw his approach to coaching Tony Romo and the relationship that they had. That's why I'm making an assumption that I'll see a similar relationship between Jason and Daniel. And Tony Romo's a quarterback that a lot of people have compared Daniel Jones to in the past. And Romo obviously had a lot of success in this offense. Romo wasn't the most fleet of foot. I think Daniel Jones is a better athlete in that aspect. But Romo and Daniel Jones both came into the league with some question marks in terms of their arm strength, things like that. Tony Romo, of course, was undrafted, but had tremendous success and is a borderline Hall of Fame quarterback under Jason Garrett. Cutcliffe was basically talking about, I saw the relationship they had, and because of that relationship, I think he'll do a very good job with Daniel Jones. Then he went on to talk about what Daniel Jones is doing this offseason in terms of his work ethic. He said, trust me, he's working 10 hours a day on his own mastering this, Cutcliffe said. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody more eager. He's every bit the worker that Peyton and Eli were their entire careers. You gotta love hearing that as a New York Giants fan. You know, one of the things that a lot of Giants fans don't love about DeAndre Baker is that, his work ethic. Well, Daniel Jones, everything we've heard this entire offseason, whether it's his former, quarterback coach or now head coach at Duke University, is they've talked about the work ethic that he brings to the table with the Duke Blue Devils. And I apologize again for looking down. I'm just trying to read the quotes. But That to me was one of the quotes that really stood out to me when I read this article regarding Daniel Jones. He said, I think he's really starting to understand what they're expecting of him and what they want to do offensively. And that'll help him be successful in this transition. So, just encouraging stuff, talking about learning the offense, things like that. And for the most part, that's all I really wanted to bring up. He then later went on to say that I think he sees, what's presented in front of him in terms of what he needs to work on and what he needs to build on. And this is going to be, as unfair as this may sound, this is going to be a high-pressure season for Daniel Jones, even though it's his second year. Knowing that if they perform very poorly, there is a top-tier quarterback in next year's draft class. Do I think that will happen? No. I think Daniel Jones is going to go out there. I think he's going to prove the doubters wrong, and I think he's going to have a very strong season in this Jason Garrett-led offense. I think the Giants might surprise some people this year in terms of putting points up on the board, and I expect Jones to really take a big step forward in year 2 of his career, and I cannot wait to see how it all plays out. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.